feel gut punched. We explore almost every human emotion one can, from devastation to joy. And all of it is just so guttural. It's the most visceral season by far that we've done.
My jaw hit the floor. I was like, what is this?
It was astounding.
Challenging.
The stakes are super high all the time.
This is a ton of responsibility for how we're going to portray these very precious and meaningful moments.
We are so much bigger than we've ever been.
And you can see that not only in the quality of the production, but in the quality of just fantastic talent.
Everything changes. The cameras, the budget, the production, the sets, everything gets bigger and bigger.
The triumphal entry, the turning of the tables, the betrayal of Judas, the Last Supper. These stories take on new resonance. It's not just the reenactment of a famous Bible story. It is the significant step of a story that we have been telling for several years. It is a powder keg about to explode, and we know the players involved. We are now in season 5 of a show that people have seen enough to know that we're not going to do it in the same old way. We do things a little bit differently. We don't change the story, but the way we tell it, the way we take our time, gives us the ability to give you the cultural context, the historical context, and yes, the human context of these famous stories.
We focus on the lesser written about characters, and through that lens, we have to explore things like the societal pressures or the political intrigue that was going on. We have to explore this socio-economic landscape that Jesus was walking into. And we have to explore in an emotional way what the expectations were for 2 million pilgrims herding themselves towards Jerusalem that year, and how much Jesus would have upset all of it.
When we last leave off in season 4, Jesus is about to make his entrance into Jerusalem.
I was looking forward to filming this because I was looking forward to the spectacle of it. But it also sets up the rest of the season. It's almost more painful because you're so excited, especially Judas. And it's like the week just gets slowly worse from there. If you think of seasons 4 through 6, it's the most sad and in fact many ways devastating period of time in the show, and that can really become weighty. Well, in the midst of all that, we have this moment that's called the triumphal entry, this moment of triumph. Thomas is the only one who's not actively participating, but otherwise he's had it was a rough season 4. It was so humbling to have hundreds and hundreds of background actors there, all of whom were fans of the show, all of whom were making this scene real, to take themselves back to the first century and try to put themselves into this moment. Down there, they're going to be doing a little singing, a little chanting, a little mix and match. Some are saying Hosanna in the highest. Some are saying Hosanna to the Son of David. Some are just going, let's go. It was very emotional for all of us, and it was very exciting, and it was an opportunity to bring this scene to life, knowing, of course, that within days of the story it was going to turn. But for a moment, we had an opportunity to just portray joy on screen.
We go in, and this is the Messiah coming. It is a party. And it felt like that.
And you see all the palms waving, and it was so crazy filming it because you're walking through the city and you're seeing these thousands of extras just giving so much energy.
And you would hear them singing and cheering, and that sound, how that resonated, it was incredible.
And I'm looking around while we're filming, and I'm seeing people crying, I'm seeing people going crazy like it's a concert for their favorite artist or something like that. And I don't know any other show that really has this kind of a personal connection with their fan base.
This is a whole other level.
I mean, it was a pretty remarkable thing to behold, how committed all of those extras were.
It's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it.
I know because I've been an extra myself. Not easy. A lot of hours, especially if you're outdoors, you have to deal with the weather, and they were living this as if it were Jerusalem in the first century, and they were making us feel it as well.
That was one of the coolest moments in the history of this show.
Those were some really, really fun days. And then it goes downhill, yeah.
And I think even Jesus is overwhelmed with the reception. Deep down, there's this underlying sadness because he knows what's to come 5 days from that point.
I just remember in season 1 talking to Jonathan and just like we're realizing that like in the future, there's certain moments in the Bible that like maybe we'll get to see. And one of those was Jesus overturning tables and like cracking the whip. And like, I've never really seen that depicted in any sort of story about Jesus.
As we're getting closer and closer to the cross, you'd think the show is getting more sad and more devastating, but this season kicks a little butt. We see Jesus taking some people down, and that's exciting, that's fun, right? Jesus is coming in and defying expectations. He has literally upset the apple cart.
We have never seen him act like that, ever. And so I think the disciples are all very concerned, obviously, for their friend and their rabbi.
It can be a little hard legally to try and explain. It's like, no, my friend's a good person. He just, had to do that. And he's maybe also the Son of God.
A lot of the disciples are arguing, like, was that okay to do? People were getting trampled.
Jesus is basically saying, this is not the way that my Father would want this run. This isn't love, this is selfishness, this is greed.
The people who are getting their tables flipped over, you can see that as an attack, or you can see that as an invitation for change.
Get used to different.
And man, when you see it, and you see it fleshed out with hundreds of extras, things set on fire, and animals running every which way, it's real, it's happening.
Action.
Awesome, cut.
It's a different side of Jesus. There's no more gentle nudging. It's time to push through.
I mean, anytime you have somebody disrupting finances, somebody's going to get pretty upset.
He's almost inviting the retribution from the religious leaders.
If you can imagine the confirmation bias that the Pharisees and Sadducees must have had with this man confronting them in that way, it suddenly elevated the threat that he posed to a different level than had existed before.
He said that no more animals were to be brought through, and then also the vendors couldn't sell the animals anymore because they had been scattered, and it threatens the existing power structures, particularly of the empire. They did rely on taxation of the market. That was a huge source of income. And so to have that cut off and sort of choked by Jesus puts him in the crosshairs.
The religious leaders are put in this position by Jesus where the only way to go to his side would be to denounce everything that they have lived for their entire lives. I mean, think about how challenging it would be to go, this guy is telling me that my entire life to this moment has been based on a flawed system. My whole life, my career, my ministry must change dramatically. And I must serve now someone and potentially something new that on the surface seems completely counterintuitive. When he says, if they believe he can raise the dead, why wouldn't they assume it? Precisely! Yeah. Yes! You're proving my point. Okay. That's when you can really start to up the ante.
I love when I hear from people who support and watch the show that thanks to the story of Shmuel, they're a little more patient with those that they disagree with, because they certainly see that somebody could be wrong. That doesn't mean they're a villain, they're not bad. I think that Shmuel is a cautionary tale and somebody that the audience seems to be rooting for many times, because they really do want to see him be redeemed and find Jesus and be able to see the Messiah for who he is. And instead, they see somebody who is incredibly educated, who is incredibly passionate, who was raised as a student of Nicodemus. Only issue is that he's wrong about Jesus. But if it was anybody but Jesus, people would be glad that there is a religious leader who's trying to protect his people from a false prophet or a con man. Certainly there were those at the time.
So their instinct is always going to be, we must remove this thing that is interrupting and disrupting, and they maybe wanted it to go away quietly. Jesus wouldn't let that happen. He basically was like, no. The only way you're going to do this is to kill me, and it's got to be public. And they're like, well, the Romans have to do it because of our laws. And it's like he just put them in this impossible position where they have to work with their oppressors. In many ways, it's devastating. It angers us at times, but it should also make us sad when we see it play out.
And so we have to give a character like Caiaphas a reasonable motivation for doing the things he did. And we want to put him in a scenario where he had to act, where Jerusalem itself felt like it was at stake.
He's a very compromised man in that he deals with compromises all the time. That's the world in which Caiaphas exists. He has to exist in the world of politics. From Caiaphas' point of view, obviously Jesus is going to say, down with taxes, the Romans are going to come in and they're going to kill a lot of Jews, and I got to stop that.
The tragedy